Trucker Dave here, and today we're tearing apart the Cleveland. As you've seen in a couple of our other videos, we ran into kind of a snag with putting the Torino engine back together. Stuff that I probably should have looked at while I had the engine out, but I got in a hurry and it came back to bite me. So we're going to harvest the parts I need off this, and we're going to do a teardown to find out why it failed, because I am really interested to know where all the bearing material came from and what exactly is broken. So let's start tearing it apart. In tearing this engine apart, I'm going to do the traditional let's throw all the bolts in a bucket randomly approach. I'm not really planning on putting this engine back together, at least not for a while, and if I do, it's going to have a bunch of new parts on it. And that's what the common guy pretty much does, unless you're really anal retentive, and there are those guys out there and I respect them. Truthfully, I'm not one of them. So I have my bucket. Let's start tearing this thing down. Now, I've never had these valve covers off. They kind of did loosen up, but I haven't pulled them off yet, so you're going to see them with me. Get this one first. Oh wow, this engine's been apart. It's got some nice aftermarket springs in there. Outstanding. So let's see what the other side looks like. Well, that could have been a problem. All right, so I'll have to clean those up. Yeah, not looking bad. So let's see what the rest of it looks like. Let's take the intake off now. I'll use the air ratchet for that. Okay, so we got the intake loose. Let's pull it off and look inside. I just pulled it up on this side. Oh, there we go. We'll stick this on the shelf next to the valve covers, maybe. So, all right, let's look and see what it looks like inside. The valley looks pretty good. So, outstanding. So I guess now we can start tearing off the front end of it. Okay, so we've got the big bolt out of the middle of the harmonic balancer. I've got the puller hooked up. We're going to pull the balancer out so we can get this front cover off. So let's get the air gun out, and hopefully it all comes out easily. Whoops, wrong way. So now we got the water pump loose, almost, and we'll get this last bolt out. I thought it was out, and this thing should just come right off. I took every bolt out, and everything's landing into my bucket of despair here, so I'm kind of excited. Oh, there we are. The water pump actually looks fairly new, so outstanding. Okay, so I got the cover off. I had a neat video of me pulling it off for the first time, and then the camera didn't turn on for some reason. So you got a nice double roller here. A little loose, but not bad. Not sure what this is. But aside from that, yeah, it's all looking pretty good. We'll have to keep on digging further and see what comes up. So let's go. Okay, what I'm going to do next is take this oil pan off. I do not recommend, well, you can take them off if you're careful with an air ratchet, which is what I'm going to do. Don't ever put them on with an air ratchet. You'll strip things, you'll break things, you'll bend things. But these rudimentary tools, you're just not good enough to stop unless you stop way out, and there's no point in doing it twice. So taking it apart like we're doing, no big deal. We'll zip them all out real quick. But if you were putting this engine together for use, I would highly recommend putting it together with air tools, or without air tools, using hand tools. You'll thank yourself later because you're not going to be breaking half as much stuff. So let's get this thing apart. I will be reusing this, so I got it soaking with a bunch of degreaser. We'll let it sit here for maybe an hour or so before we wash it off, and hopefully by then we'll have the rest of that taken apart. So let's take a look inside here. I've been inside here once before. It looks pretty good. I can still see some hone marks and all that. I am very interested to find out where the actual trouble happened, so let's dig into it. Here is the piece that I was having trouble with on the new engine. This is the drive rod for the oil pump. This had gotten bent. Actually, you can see this one's a little bent too. But yeah, so it had gotten a little bent. We're gonna spin this to find out if it's good or not, or if it's building pressure. I won't spin it very long, and I'm gonna put some oil in the cylinders, and we'll get it to where, you know, see if it builds pressure. If it builds pressure, we'll send it, but if it doesn't build pressure, we're gonna probably pull it back out, or at least take the pan off and redo the whole oil setup. So, but that's what I was having trouble with. This little rod is the heartbeat of your engine. Take care of it. While I got the engine upside down, I might as well just take the crank out. So, wish me luck. So, we got the first end cap off. Bearings look decent. Well, this one does. There's a bit of scoring in it, which tells me it was worn. Nothing bad though. It just probably a little more heat. You can see that right there. So now we'll have to take the rest of them off. Make sure you keep these in order, so when you go and pull your pistons out, the right caps go back on the right you know, piston arms, or all the terminology escapes me. It's not like I went to school for this or anything. Because these are all machined to work together, and you plan to reuse these. You want the same, the rods. Yeah, that's it. You want the caps that are supposed to go with the rods. You got to keep them together, so be mindful of that. I'm kind of in a weird predicament at the moment. I need to get that flywheel off, but at the same time, the bolts are on there so tight that I probably should have really broken them loose while everything was still connected. So I'm having trouble with that, but not only that is I forgot to take the spacer plate out. So in order to get that and the crank out, I have to take it off the stand and drop everything as one unit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just pull the heads off and get that out. We'll pull the cam out, and then we'll take the end caps off the crank, and we'll look at those, and we'll get a really good look on what the inside of this thing looked like. So we can do that. Okay, so we got the rocker arms undone. We're taking the head bolts out now. They got a little bit of wear. Not too terrible. So it's looking pretty positive so far. So I'm going to get the heads off, and then we'll pull the one head off. We'll look at it, and then we'll go pull the other head off. So stay tuned. It's coming quick. Okay, so I've got all the bolts out, and let's lift this head off and see what it looks like. Oh, oh my. This is interesting. So it's pretty carboned up. It's not really all that dirty. It's really not hardly even a real ridge in here, but it's definitely worn. We got some burned exhaust valves, and we got all burned exhaust valves. So this was yeah, this engine was on its way out for sure. Okay, so we got this head off, the other head all loose, so now we can pull this one off. So I'm kind of excited about this. So let's get it off, see what happens. Oh, get all the bolts out. Ah. Did I get all the bolts? Yeah. This one's acting a little stuck, so we'll get a little persuasion and give it a little bit of a, oh, there we go. Pick it up. Be the first ones to see what it looks like. So, and there we go. We got it up. Oh, we've only got one burn valve on here instead of 4 like the others say. So if I'm going to reuse these heads, I'm going to have to send them out. So let's get the rest of the engine. Let's finish up with the end caps, and then we'll get a summary out of this. We're getting these pistons out, and sometimes they stick, and a little tip I like to use is sometimes when they stick, all you really have to do, and it helps if there's somebody there to catch them, and you're not trying to do this one-handed, just give it a little tap like that, and 9 times out of 10 they'll just, why is everything I'm doing, I try to, and there we go, it flew right out. So let's see what that looks like. And it landed in the cat litter, but overall it looks pretty good. So let's get the other 3 out, get the lifters, and we'll see what everything looks like. Okay, so we've got the camshaft loose, and we're gonna wiggle that out, and let's see what it looks like. And there's some stuff that came out that probably shouldn't have been in there, so let's give it a look out here in the sunlight. Oh, that is pretty well scored. Got some chunks missing right there. Overall, not too bad. There was some scoring on this bearing journal here and this bearing journal here. The only real problem I saw in the cam, lobes itself is right there. So let's go see what the bearings look like. So I found the culprit. This right here was a dead giveaway. That means there's metal been hitting that. So we go over here to the engine, and I didn't have to look far. This first bearing is gone, and I don't know how bad the other bearings are. I doubt it was in the lower end. I always figured it was in the camshaft, or the upper end here. Looks like I was right, but I guess I'm gonna hold off pulling these off till I figure out what I'm actually doing, because when I pull the rest of these off to redo them, I want to have it off the stand and be able to get the flywheel and everything off and do it right. But there you go. That's the culprit right here. Doesn't look like much, does it? But it wrecked an engine. It's a lot of metal. So, and if you look at these bearings down here, you know, these you can see the scoring in there. That's from loose metal inside the engine. So that right there made it all the way down here. And chances are these are all shot too. So I might just pull one off. I said I was going to, so yeah, screw it, I'll pull them off. Okay, so I've got them all loose, and here we go. Pull the first one off. Well, that didn't help. You think I'd be cleaner, but everybody, you know me. No, I'm not. Make sure that gets cleaned off, though. So let's pull the first bearing off that came off with it. Oh yeah, it's scored, but it's not bad. If I was to rebuild this block, I would either have this crank machined or get a new crank. So yeah, that's a kind of funky looking there. So let's put this back on. That way we don't, and let's start looking at the other ones. Okay, so this is the bearing out of the second journal. You can see it's flaking right here. Got some pretty good scoring in it. And got metal flaking off the side. I think the thrust washers were gone out of this too. That's where some of the material was, but the majority of it was from the camshaft. And my video about replacing the oil pump, I showed all those fragments. I thought I still had them laying around, but I think I probably threw them out, which is shocking because people that look at my garage wonder if I throw anything out. So got some wear here on the side. It was tapering, so let's go check out the other two. Something fascinating I think you'll like on this one. You can see this bearing starting to pop out here, which means this bearing was starting to spin. So either that or it had spun already. So that's what a spun bearing looks like. So hey, now let's get to these other ones and see what happens. I'm getting excited. Okay, so now we got the actual thrust washer out, and looks pretty good on this side. There's a little pitting. You can see some metal, but this side you can see it had grooves more into it, and it all got pretty chewed up. So that hasn't happened a dozen times today. It got pretty chewed up, so that's where one of the problems was, and the scoring is pretty good. This engine needed to be taken apart. So actually, right here, the rear main actually looked pretty good. There's a little scoring in that one, but it's not too bad. The seal was in good shape. So, but that was pretty good. And number 4 was, actually, this one was the best one of them all. Minimal scoring, everything looked really good on both sides. So there you go. That's, I'll let you see the crank journal here. Well, for the most part, I'm not disappointed. The crank looks pretty good for the most part. So I'm really not, like I said, I'm really not disappointed in it. Just kind of sad it all went the way of the buffalo, but so we'll get these snug back on, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with this engine. As we wind all this up, the lifters, you know, I looked at the bottom of each one. They were in, you know, they were all in really good shape. There really wasn't even any concaving in there. Little discoloration, you know, and as we went to the block, there wasn't even a ridge. I mean, the pistons just came right out, and you know, and you saw the pistons, they all looked really good except for oh, I'll tell you what I think about that here. The timing was advanced on this quite a bit, and I think a lot of it has to do with it was running and it was running a little hot. But there was a whole bunch of things wrong. The timing was off. There was a little bit of pre-ignition in it. The former owner, his kid drove the car. The kid put a hurt on it. But when this car was originally designed to run on leaded gasoline and 93 octane, sitting here running the cheapest 86 biogas through it is what hurt the cylinders. That's what burned everything up. I don't care what anybody says. That you can argue with me till the cows come home. I think that fuel's crap. It's not real gas. It's basically moonshine with methyl alcohol. But that's another tangent for another day. So all in all, the heads did need to be rebuilt. They've needed to be rebuilt since I got the car. I had a video of it firing up, and you can see it smoking out of the driver's side. And that back cylinder was it. But overall, it's the rattling and all that was exactly what I thought it was. But you saw the metal got in the engine. Well, that metal contaminated everything. If that bearing hadn't gone out, there would have been no metal in the engine. But when you get those little flakes, they travel all through, and you saw it. They affected the rods, the mains, they affected everything. And so that's why when you start thinking you have a problem, that's why it's important to take care of these things. Fixing this, I could have this engine rebuilt for a couple grand, or I could rebuild it myself for under $1,000 if I really want to, and I just might. But all in all, I had the same I had a camshaft go out of my semi a few years back, and that was over $10,000, and I had kind of the same thing. Some metal got into it, trashed everything. We had to replace all the rods and mains, the oil cooler, and just continually flush the engine for a couple, 3 oil changes to make sure we got all the oil out. So, but these things happen. This is a car. You can't predict these things. But there are warning signs like, with the oil light and the way it runs and vibrates and all that, and you saw it in my first video. So anyhow, that was a teardown. I hope you enjoyed it. We got some more stuff we're going to be filming on this car here soon. Hopefully in the next video I'm going to have the new oil pan on. I'll have the new pump in. Stuff I should have done with it out of the car, but it'll be fun. We'll show you how to do it with it in the car. It's not that hard. It's just what's the word? Inconvenient. It would have been more convenient to do it outside, but I got a few things I'm going to try, but chances are I think instead of just trying to see if it works, I'm thinking that we're just going to go ahead and just replace the distributor, put the new rod in, put the new fuel pump in, and just start like we're supposed to. So this kind of thing doesn't happen with the new engine, and that would probably be the best course of action. So I appreciate it. I hope this video has been fun. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and I hope that I can put out some good content that you guys will enjoy. So thanks for watching, and if there's anything you want to see, let me know. We're going to be doing some more on the Crown Vic hopefully soon. I really like that car. It is fast. I just don't want to get caught driving on the road because I don't have any paperwork on it. So, so like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.